Hey guys, so today I'm here with the RedRock 4x4 full width front bumper with halogen fog lights as well as a winch mount fitting all 2018 and newer JL Wranglers. So this front bumper is going to be perfect for the JL owner who's looking to add a ton of functionality as well as a new upgraded look to the front end of their Wrangler at a very affordable price point. So this is going to provide you full front end protection and be very durable to protect the front end of your Wrangler while having uncompromised approach angles. Perfect for somebody who's looking to do a little bit of crawling on the trails and doesn't want a full width front bumper to get in the way. Now, speaking of the trails, this is going to provide a lot of utility exactly for that. So this is going to be perfect for somebody who's looking to add off of this front bumper, considering it does have a winch plate as well as light mounting options on top of the bull bar and on top of the front bumper here. And it also has two welded D-ring mounts for that extra insurance while you're out on the trail and is going to provide a very functional recovery point. So what I really do like about this front bumper in comparison to other options is that it comes with a set of halogen fog lights. So this is perfect for somebody who's either looking to upgrade their fog lights as well as their front bumper, or doesn't want all of the extra hassle of swapping over their factory fog lights into a new front bumper. So not to mention, this is just going to give an upgraded and off-road and aggressive feel to the front end of your Wrangler at a very affordable price point. So speaking of price, this is going to be roughly $500, and I personally think for a full width front bumper that offers all of the standard and added features of an aftermarket or heavy duty front bumper, that is a great price. So in comparison to some other choices that you may be taking a look at on the website, some more expensive choices are usually going to include some extra bells and whistles, including LED lights instead of halogen lights. And on the other hand, less expensive choices or more cost-effective choices are usually going to be for mid-width or stubby front bumpers that won't provide the full front end protection that you see here. So in my personal opinion, I think if you don't need all of those extra bells and whistles, but you're still looking for all of those standard features, but yet very functional features out of an aftermarket or heavy duty front bumper, that this is going to be a perfect option to take a look at. Now, this is going to be a very easy 1 out of 3 wrenches on the difficulty meter. There is a little bit of wiring involved with those halogen lights. However, I'll walk you through it. So speaking of the install, let's jump into that now. The tools that I used for my install were an impact wrench, an air ratchet, a 3/8 inch drive and 1/4 inch drive ratchet, Phillips head screwdriver and a flathead screwdriver, a pair of wire cutters, strippers, and crimpers, an 8mm open-ended wrench, an 18mm and 16mm deep socket, an 8mm shallow socket, and a 7mm deep socket. So our first step is going to be to remove our upper splash shield. Now I am going to use a flathead screwdriver to remove the 6 pop clips that are holding that in. So you can also use a trim removal tool, but I find this a little bit easier. So our next step is to remove the lower splash guard. Now it's going to be held in at the front near the bumper with a couple of retainer clips. So I'm going to take a trim removal tool and remove those clips. So our next step is to remove the 2 bolts in the back of our splash guard. I'm going to use an 8mm deep socket and my impact wrench to remove those. Same thing for the other side of the splash guard. And then the whole splash guard will be removed. So our next step is to remove our skid plate. There's going to be 2 16mm bolts on either side. So I'm going to use a 16mm socket to remove those bolts. And we can slide up on our skid plate and get it out of the way. So after we've removed the splash guard and the skid plate, we will be able to access the studs on our front bumper that are holding it to the frame. So I'm going to use an 18mm socket to remove the 2 nuts on the outside studs, and then we can move to the inside. So our next step is to remove the nuts on the inside stud. So I'm going to use that same 18mm socket, but I'm also going to use an air ratchet because my impact gun does not fit in here. Then we can do the same thing for the other frame horn. And while we're here, we can also disconnect our fog light wiring harness. You just press down on this tab and pull back, and then we'll be able to remove our upper splash guard as well as our front bumper. So our next step is just to pull the bumper back a little bit so we can remove our upper splash guard. I'm just gonna put that on top of the Jeep for a second, and then we can go ahead and fully remove our front bumper. So before we go ahead and install our new front bumper, I wanted to tell you guys a little bit more about it, especially in comparison to the factory front bumper. Now right off the bat, you can tell that it is the same length and roughly the same size. It is still going to be a full width front bumper, but what I really like about this is the fact that it's going to offer you way more protection than the factory plastics, which can get pretty damaged if you take a hit off-road. This is going to be made of a steel plate and steel tube construction, which will allow for some more protection on the front end of your Wrangler. This is also going to have a two-stage texture black powder coat finish, which will do a really good job at protecting that steel underneath from any rust or corrosion, but it's also going to achieve an off-road and more aggressive look to the front end of your JL. Now on the topic of protection, this is also going to have an overrider feature or a bull bar, which is going to give you that grille protection, and it's also going to have angled up ends, so even though it is going to give you that full length protection, you are going to have uncompromised approach angles with this, and you may be able to fit a larger wheel and tire than you would with the factory setup that has these plastic flaps on the end. Now you are also getting a couple of different features that your factory front bumper is unable to allow. So you do get a recessed winch plate capable of holding a winch with up to a 12,000 pound pulling capacity. You do get two light mounting tabs up on the top, so you are able to add accessory lighting down the road, and you're getting two solid D-ring mounts on the front, and this also does come with D-rings. So you are getting a more efficient and a more solid recovery point than you would with your factory tow hooks. So the other thing that I do really like about this is that this comes with a pair of halogen fog lights. You don't necessarily have to take out the factory ones and swap them over to the new bumper. RedRock 4x4 makes it very easy, and they supply you with some extra fog lights. So speaking of that, let's jump into the fog light installation. So our next step is to install our brackets on our fog lights. You are going to be provided with two Phillips head screws, so we can take our fog light and line up our bracket. Go ahead and screw those into the side. So we're not going to tighten it down all the way, and as you can tell, this does have a little bit of adjustability, so once we mount it up to our bumper, we can go ahead and adjust it, make sure it's sitting where we want it. So after the bracket's installed, we can install that to the mount that is on our front bumper. So I'm going to lay that bracket down, put our provided bolt through the back. We can take our flat washer, lock washer, and nut and thread that onto the front there. Now these have a little bit of adjustability as well, so you will be able to raise up the fog light or lower it if you need to. Then we can tighten that down with an 8mm socket and wrench. After we're finished this side, we can do the same thing on the other side. So after we've mounted up the new fog lights, what we have to do is wire them in. Now there's going to be a couple of options that you have when it comes to wiring up these fog lights. Now you can reuse the factory harness and splice them into each of the leads on each of the new fog lights. You can outsource for a wiring harness, or you can extend the leads that are already on your new fog lights. Now that's exactly what we're going to do. I have some wires here as well as some spade connectors, and we're just going to extend our wires and attach them to the two leads that are already in our fog light wiring harness that's already on our Wrangler. So you are going to need a pair of wire cutter strippers and crimpers if you are looking to do it this way, and we can go ahead and wire up our new fog lights. So what I'm going to do is attach two long leads to reach over to the passenger side fog light. So for the positive wire, I'm going to add a spade connector. Go ahead and crimp that down. And then for the negative wire, I'm going to add a butt connector. Now, if you are going to do this method, I would recommend to heat shrink these. However, these are not going to be permanent for us, so I am not going to. Then we're going to connect it to the driver's side fog light. And we can take our spade connector and attach that to the positive wire. Then we can run these underneath our winch plate and over to the other side and do the same thing. All right, so after our leads are connected, what we can do is splice these into each other and put two spade connectors on the end so we can attach it to the leads on our Wrangler. So after they're both connected, what we can do is take a smaller lead. We can just use our leftover wire and add a spade connector at the end of those so we can attach it to the leads on our Wrangler. All right, so after our leads are connected and our wires are wired up to our fog lights, what we can do next is mount up our front bumper. So what we can do now is grab our front bumper and mount it up to our frame horns. Like I said, it does have studs on there. You just have to make sure that your wiring harness is not in the way. And we can put those studs through the frame horn. So now we can attach our provided hardware, which is going to be our flat washer, lock washer, and our provided nut. And then we can attach the other side of our frame horn, and then we can tighten it down with a 16mm deep socket. Now because both sides are on, we can go ahead and tighten down the inside studs with a 16mm deep socket. And we can do the same thing for the other side and then attach our outside frame horn hardware. Now we can move to the outside frame horn and attach the hardware on our studs. So you can do the same thing on the other side. And while we're already over on the passenger side, we can plug in our leads for our new halogen fog lights. All right, now we can tuck this wire up and out of the way, and we're all set to go. So that's gonna wrap it up for my review and install. Make sure you like and subscribe, and for more videos and products like this, always keep it right here at ExtremeTerrain.com.